4B movement?
4B movement.
About the 4B movement.
What the 4B movement is?
Korean feminist movement 4B is taking the internet by storm.
The 4B movement is coming to your town, buddy. Pay attention.
Where modern feminists all around the world have declared 4 deadly sins. No sex with men, no child rearing, no dating men, and no marriage with men.
He hates you.
Just leave us the fuck alone.
We don't care.
Men no longer want to fight to maintain their social cohesion.
But could these sins cause the next fall of the Western Roman Empire?
Dude, we're gonna help you destroy society. Get on with it. We're ready to see this kingdom fall.
Kind of like Rome.
Yeah, just like Rome.
Let's find out and see.
Oh Lord, y'all done up.
Hi, welcome back to my channel where I talk about relationships, social science, history, trending topics, and political media biases. So let's get into it. So what exactly is the 4B movement? The 4B movement actually started in South Korea by 2 women named Jung Si-young and Bak Han. They are 2 women who have criticized marriage for upholding toxic gender roles, where a woman cooks, cleans, and bears children, and the male is seen as the leader of the household, the protector, and provider. However, it seems that the women in South Korea are sick and tired of having these gender roles placed on them. The title of the 4B movement is derived from multiple Korean words that start with B. The 4 B's, and sorry if I butcher this, represents Byeon, which is no marriage. The second B is Bichusan, which means no childbirth. The third B is Byeone, which means no dating. And the last B is Biseksu, which means no sex. Back in 2018, when the movement first started, there was a movement called Escape the Corset, where Korean women publicly rejected beauty standards by shaving their heads and going out barefaced, which to us living in the West sounds crazy since a lot of women here tend to go out with makeup and messy hairstyles all the time when we go to Walmart. However, in Korean culture, women don't really have the luxury of walking out of their house in pajamas without getting judged by their neighbors. A photographer by Jeon Bora shows a South Korean woman who has shaved her head. Jeon's goal was to show her subjects as they really are, not how Korean society wants them to look. She places them in photos in a gallery in Seoul, fashionable Gangnam district, which is only open to women, where they can find black and white portraits showing women smiling, some of them naked with no makeup and short hair. Jeon told NPR, "I wanted this expedition to destroy the socially defined idea of a woman." Jeon also encourages her subjects to look at themselves without makeup or photo editing. For many, she says this was awkward for them at first, and some even cried during their photo shoots. They said they didn't have the confidence to look themselves in the eye, but after several viewings, they started to pick out the pictures that they liked and found features that they liked themselves. In Korean culture, women are taught that beauty is their biggest asset, and by getting married, they can exchange their beauty for social and economic status. So by rejecting beauty standards, this has led some women to rebel against the entire social structure, which means boycotting romantic relationships, marriage, sex, and childbirth. But to say that this movement only started because of beauty standards would be incredibly simple-minded. So let's take a look at the much deeper problem. Media reports have also suggested the 4B movement is in retaliation to recent incidents, including high-profile murders of women, revenge porn, and spy cam sex crimes. There was even an instance in Korea where a man murdered a young woman in a public bathroom, and he was claimed to do so because she ignored him. However, the police did not classify this as a hate crime. Due to the discrimination and mistreatment of women, it's no wonder they felt the need to start the 4B movement. Due to so many women not wanting to get married or have children, this has caused a drastic decline in the birth rate for 6 years in a row. The average number of women born to a woman in her reproductive years is now 0.72, which is down from the 0.78 in 2022. In 2024, the rate is projected to fall even further to 0.68, which is far below the 2.1 children needed to maintain a country's population at its current level. It's even gotten so bad that 157 schools in South Korea do not have first graders. Let's take a look.
So the new school year has recently started in Korea since it's March, and there's been a lot of articles recently about how the admission rate for first graders has plummeted dramatically. Yeah. There's even 150 schools across the country where there wasn't one single first grade student enrolling. And we're going to talk about this particular article here and what Koreans have to say about it.
An elementary school teacher said compared to last year, there are about 25% fewer students this year. And this extends to kindergartens, and they say that kindergartens and childcare places that are closed nowadays are becoming for elderly people, like nursing homes.
It's estimated that the number of young children will decrease by over 30% in 2028, and the number of kindergartens and childcare centers will decrease by about 12,000.
That is absolutely insane that South Korea has wiped out 157 schools of 6 to 7-year-olds. In my opinion, this is bad. This is really, really bad. But a lot of people seem to be very excited about the idea of no children. Watch this.
This is what will happen to our society if young people stop having kids.
I want that 4B movement to be worldwide.
Not the US and Europe getting to the point where people are so fed up that they are praying for humanity as we know it to cease to exist. Who needs God to flood the earth when we have people willing to do it themselves? Ladies first, move! But is 4B really the blame for these shockingly low birth rates and empty classrooms? Well, let's ask them.
This claim that 4B is the reason why South Korea's birth rate is declining, I think that's completely backwards. Online spaces like Magali and WOMAD, where 4B is coming from, they're all pretty small. Maybe like thousands of people, maybe like 2 million if we have a broader definition. But that'd be like saying the United States birth rate is declining because of like a subreddit. So why aren't women having children? Misogyny and patriarchy is one part, yes. But it's also a lack of affordable housing. It's a really intense work culture where you work a lot of hours and women have to drop off to take care of the kids because that's their expectation in a patriarchal society, but then they get penalized at work for doing it. So it's not 4B that's causing a low birth rate. 4B and the low birth rate are both reactions to everything I just described.
So from what it sounds like, birth rates are mainly declining due to competitive pressure such as employment, housing, and childcare, poor work-life balance, and lack of support for new parents. Does that sound familiar to you, America? I think conservative and liberal women and men can come together and agree that raising a child in this economy is no easy job. Not to mention that motherhood is a hard, underappreciated, and selfless job where women are not only expected to work their 40-hour job along with their spouse in order to make ends meet, but to come home to cook, clean, and make sure her children are fed, bathed, and ready for school the next morning. A lot of married women have even stated that their husbands don't really help out around the house either. So it's no wonder so many women are choosing to opt out of getting married and having children, especially when we are told by our own mothers that came before us that a mother's job is never done. But we were never told a father's job is never done. Sounds exhausting and unfair, right? But I digress. Well, the 4B movement has gained popularity in the West, where women in the US are now saying, this seems familiar. They might be onto something, which caused the birth of the West 4B movement. Let's take a look at the official West 4B movement website. Similar to the women in South Korea, women within the United States are facing very identical circumstances regarding life under patriarchy. The West 4B movement stands with the women of South Korea and their outline regarding the separation of themselves from men. Within this outline, women of the West 4B movement aim to uphold no heterosexual marriage, no childbirth, no dating, and no heterosexual relationships. So it looks like the women in the West are joining forces with South Korea to stand against injustice. However, there has been talk that the 4B movement really isn't as popular as the Western media is making it out to be. So let's take a look at what Korean women have had to say.
Korean women have no idea what the 4B movement is, and we need to stop this misinformation.
Okay, so thank you to my friend Annie for making that video, because I am a Korean woman currently living in Korea and I have so much to say about this topic. So most of the 4B movement videos that I've seen on TikTok are made from foreigners, and I think Korean Americans or just Asian people living in the West, but not actually people living in Korea. So like I said, I live in Seoul. What I think is happening is the Western media likes to really pick up on these sensationalist, provocative topics and then makes it into an article, and then everyone on TikTok follows suit and makes videos about it. But let me tell you, I am 29, going to turn 30 this year, and literally all the conversations that I have with my friends around my age is about, oh my god, we're looking to get married, we need to find good partners, and we need to do this before it gets too late or we're just like aged out of their marriage market, you know? And I just made a YouTube video about this, Korea's population crisis, why nobody's getting married or having babies. But I also explained there are services in Korea like marriage matchmaking services where people go and you pay a broker and you submit all this information about yourself, your income, your assets, your family background, if you have any debt, like which university you went to, you submit all that information, and then they take that and then they will try to match you up with people who they think that you're on par with. So, you know how you see in K-dramas how like the poor girl ends up marrying the richest CEO of Korea? Yeah, in reality, that never happens. So people go to these marriage services and they're heavily used. There are literally so many in the country because everyone is using them. And so the 4B movement in Korea is a very, very small fraction of the whole Korean population in general. It's just the Western media likes to highlight that part and make it seem like it's the biggest issue in Korea, which it really is not. I can promise you that. Don't believe all those sensational articles written online all the time. Most people in Korea still like the other sex. We want to date, we want to find love, we want to get married. Those are like the big majority. And it's only the small group of extreme radical misandrists and extreme radical misogynists. They just seem like the loudest because the most attention goes to them. But yeah, I literally just dropped a YouTube video explaining about this whole thing. So go watch it, Anna Lee on YouTube.
So I looked into it, and yes, she is correct. The 4B movement has a very small percentage of members compared to the general population. There are roughly 25.8 million women in South Korea as of 2022, and the 4B movement is projected to have about 4,000 members as of 2019. In the United States, there are 168.6 million women as of 2022, and that's including children. And they have assessed that there could be about 5,000 to 50,000 4B members here in the West. So a very small percentage compared to the general population. Plus, I haven't been able to find very many videos from Korean women talking about it. However, you could make the argument that at one point the feminist movement had only 300 members during the first wave in 1884, and as of today, 61% of American women claim to be feminist. So, is there a chance that the 4B movement could be more than just a trend? However, if it's not, and women are really saying, I don't want to have children, what would that mean for our future world? Me personally, I don't want to be here in this world to find out. But are we already living in it? Even without the 4B movement, by the end of the century, almost every country in the world could have a shrinking population. Even though people are living longer due to advances in healthcare and a decline in poverty, people are still having fewer babies. Over the past 50 years, the total number of births per woman has roughly halved to 2.3. In most advanced economies, it is already well below the replacement rate of 2.1, where the population replaces itself from one generation to the next, taking into account mortality. And some of you might be thinking, oh my God, like our population is overpopulated anyways, we need to change. Who cares about having children? I can barely afford a dozen eggs at the grocery store. I don't even want to be here myself. Well, the consequences of a shrinking population could actually have more effects than we think. It could also possibly lead us to the next fall of the Western Roman Empire. Now, some might argue that a declining population is good. Some arguments are that we do not have enough food to sustain a high population. Our world is already overcrowded. Environmental impacts of increased population could possibly cause pollution or overconsumption of finite natural resources. And with less population means higher wages and better quality of life. And while that sounds great and all, will it have a greater negative impact on our economy? Let's first take a look at the demographic shift. A decline in birth rates can lead to an aging population and demographic imbalances. If fewer children are being born, the amount of elderly people in the population increases, which can strain healthcare systems, pension funds, and social welfare programs designed to support retirees. Which can be really bad for millennials and Gen Z who are already living paycheck to paycheck and can barely afford to save for retirement. For economic implications, a shrinking population can have economic repercussions, including a small labor force, reduced consumer demand, higher taxes, lower return for savers, and reduced tax revenue. The challenges in the social system are institutions such as healthcare, education, and retirement systems may face challenges in adapting to changing demographics. For example, healthcare systems may need to address the needs of an aging population, while educational systems may need to adjust to changing student demographics and workforce demands. For political ramifications, governments may implement policies to address declining birth rates, such as incentives for childbirth, or immigration policies to supplement labor forces. Plus, political debates may arise regarding the role of the government in family planning, child care support, and immigration. And then you have global implications. Declining birth rates may have global implications, particularly in regions experiencing rapid population growth. Migration patterns may shift as individuals seek opportunities in countries with a more favorable demographic. So with all of these things, it can result in a declining economy, and it has been shown historically that areas with a declining population have been linked to backwards economies. Now, here comes another big issue, which is national character, aka morality. I believe Asia Times said it best. A people without progeny will not accept a single military casualty. If this generation is the last, there will be no children for whom to sacrifice. Today's Europeans value their distractions and amusement more than they do their prospective children. Basically, if we have no children, then who will join our military? If we have no military, that leaves us vulnerable to Westerners' biggest enemies. And if we are attacked, that can change Western societies as we know it. So if you take into account how low birth rates have an effect on the health of the economy, environmental impacts, political ramifications, military decline, and national character, can all of this lead to the Western society ceasing to exist just like the Roman Empire? Well, maybe. There are a lot of factors that come into play in order for a society to decline, but we can still learn something from Rome. The United States founding fathers were inspired by Rome's government and its heroes who defended the government from tyranny. The U.S. Constitution and justice system are also influenced by Rome. Many Americans recognize the historical significance of Rome as one of the greatest civilizations in Western history. They may admire Rome's achievements and view as a foundational influence on Western civilization. People often study events such as the fall of the Roman Republic or the decline of the Roman Empire to glean insight into issues such as political corruption, military overextension, and the role of institutions in maintaining a societal stability. The rise and fall of the Roman Empire illustrates the fragility of even the most powerful empires, America and Europe being no exception. There have been some similarities between Rome and modern-day society, such as we both have a republic form of government, and even though it depends on who you ask, a strong legal system, cultural and assimilation, diversity, military power, and global influence, and both are guided by Christian principles. We also both have a lot of corrupt officials. So you might be asking, what does this have to do with 4B, marriage, women, and low birth rates? What does this have to do with feminism? Well, I came across this video and it offered an interesting perspective on how women might be partly to blame for the fall of Rome. So let's take a look at that.
When you study every empire that has fallen, there's 3 stages, Ed. The first stage is the death of God. And once that happens, the moral structure above is castigated. So what happens next? The next stage is female sexual liberation. And I specify female sexual liberation, not male, because what happens is there's a guy named J.D. Unwin. He wrote his magnum opus called Sex and Culture. And he studied 86 different cultures through 5,000 years of recorded history. And he found that with the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Athenians, the Romans, what they all had in common is once we give up our belief in God, women become sexually liberated. And once they're sexually liberated, men no longer want to fight to maintain their social cohesion. From reading all the literature, this is what's going to happen, I think.
Kind of like Rome?
Yeah, just like Rome.
I mean, that's true. Again, men are always in search of sexual promiscuity. Women historically have not been. And family formation rests on precisely that basis, that dichotomy.
So basically, he is saying 3 stages for an empire to fall. 1, death of God, which we're already seeing that. 2, female sexual liberation, which is happening. And then 3, men no longer fight to maintain a society. And I'll talk soon about how that is happening right now. Keep in mind that Ewan's work is pretty old. His book was published in 1934 and he was born in the 19th century. So his own biases could have an impact on his observations and conclusions. So you could take this point as a grain of salt or a warning. Plus, Rome fell for a number of reasons outside of female sexual liberation, such as political instability, corruption, economic decline, military challenges, barbarian invasion, social and cultural factors, and the division of Western and Eastern Rome. But is there a part that can still be true? Are women partly to blame for the fall of Rome? Does J.D. Ewan have a point that women who are sexually liberated can be the downfall of our society? We're a society where women stray from biblical views of marriage, sex outside of wedlock, and traditional teachings could cause a generation to die in only 3 generations. So should we lock up women and say, in order for our society to keep flourishing, you keep having babies and hush up? You have shown throughout history that you women do not know how to act right, so we would rather you be miserable so we can keep up the system. Personally, I feel like the fall of Rome had more to do with terrible leadership rather than women becoming prostitutes and having nannies raise their children. Plus, I would like to believe that men aren't going to go and force women to have children. I mean, that would just be crazy, right? But I digress. Well, now that the 4B movement is here, women are saying, okay, fine. Since we get blamed for everything, we just won't marry or make babies with you at all. We have heard men's complaints regarding how they feel about women and reviewed them. We want to give all men the peace they so desperately need. Okay, sounds good, right? All good, right? Men, you gonna say something? You're not going to try to make it right? No? No? Okay. Men don't care. The men are like, okay, we didn't want you anyways. We don't care about you anymore. If none of you can be the submissive, traditional wife that we want, I'll stay single. And according to the third stage mentioned in this video, if men can't have the traditional woman they want, they don't care if the world burns. They give up. They even started the soft guy era trend, and they call themselves Drizzle Drizzle, which is a ripoff of that Sprinkle Sprinkle lady. This is where men are calling themselves the prize. Now men don't even want to pay for dates, buy women flowers, or do any courting. Instead, they want the woman to do all the initiation. Some have said that this is just satire, and others have said that they are serious. Either way, not going to lie, the videos and comments are pretty funny, and I'm so happy you men are finally taking care of your skin and doing self-care. But point still stands. Men, they don't feel it necessary to fight and protect anymore. Young men have even said that they don't even want children anymore. But I think we should hear from the men themselves.
The 4B movement is coming to your town, buddy. Pay attention. Okay, we don't care. What makes you think men care about the birth rate dropping? We're the only ones that have an obligation to financially take care of kids any fucking way. You're really blessing us in disguise. You know what also is going to reduce? Child support. And protection. Dating, provision. Yo, please, can y'all hurry up? Side note, and my mother told me this, but women typically have children because they want that unconditional love feeling that children give them that they typically don't get from men because we have to work to provide and protect for y'all ass. You think there's no female loneliness epidemic? Watch this. Men are gonna let the bad men do what they do. We're gonna help you destroy society. And when pandemonium and chaos, purge shit starts to happen, you can't look to men for any type of defense. That's all. And then this prophecy is gonna come into fruition. But notice how it says, and in that day, 7 women shall take hold of 1 man. It didn't say shit about us taking hold back. So get on with it. We're ready to see this kingdom fall and the kingdom of heaven to come. Bring 4B, 4C, 4...
So yeah, it sounds like the men are fed up. Men just don't care anymore. At least not as much as women do. Historically, within a generation, men and women have held similar political views. However, since 2014, there has been a drastic shift in how both men and women view the world. Women between the ages of 18 and 29 have become more liberal each year, while young men have become more conservative, especially in the last 8 years. You can see here in the United States, women are becoming more liberal and men are becoming more conservative as the years go on. You can also see the same in Germany, the UK, and South Korea. In the US, younger men are even more conservative than men of older generations. Here is a chart stating that women seek to gain power by gaining control over men. The red bars are from women and the blue bars are from men. And it shows the ages at the top where the youngest group is on the left and the oldest group is on the right. And as you can see, the tallest blue bar of men who agree with this statement are between the ages of 18 to 29. And they are the youngest group in this poll. So that means men between 18 and 29 agree that women want to control men. Another chart was collected from Germany where they asked a group of people if foreigners living in Germany should adapt their lifestyle to those of Germans. So basically, if they agree with this statement, they are saying that foreigners should adapt to the lifestyle of the country they are living in, essentially abandoning their own culture. And if they disagree, they are saying that they shouldn't abandon their culture. And as you can see, women who are in Gen Z are more likely to disagree with this statement, whereas Gen Z men are one of 2 groups that agrees that people should abandon their culture and conform to the new culture that they are living in, which is a conservative viewpoint. A poll was also done in Britain where they were given a statement that immigration undermines Britain culture life. Higher on the y-axis means more agreement, and lower on the y-axis means less agreement. And as you can see, with every group, young or old, men or women, are less likely to agree with the statement that immigration undermines British culture. Except, and let's see if you can guess it. Yes, Gen Z men. Also, according to Business Insiders, Gen Z women are more likely than Gen Z men to vote, care more about political issues, and participate in social movements and protests. So it seems like Gen Z men are just fed up over everything. They are struggling more in school, they are less likely to go out and graduate from college, they don't have a lot of friends as much as they did in previous years, and they are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. So it sounds like there are not a lot of good role models in mental health help for young men these days, and I would even argue that us women don't have very good role models either. There has never been such a divide between young men and women in the past 25 years. But while women were rallying together in the name of feminism and equality, many Gen Z men began to feel like society was turning against them. They were feeling a little left out. Men who want to provide, protect, defend, and lead a traditional Christian household are going against women who are saying, no, I don't care about your Bible that encourages toxic masculinity. I don't want to be submissive. I can't trust men anymore, so I will lead my own household. And I've even heard that women say that the 4B movement isn't about not dating all men, but about encouraging women to not settle. However, I would make the argument that if that is the case, that the 4B movement is saying don't be with emotionally unavailable men, why is a movement necessary to have dating standards? Why do you need 4 rules that you don't need to be dating, marrying, having sex, and having no kids with men if the point is to only not date, marry, have sex, and have kids with bad men? Again, why is this necessary to have dating standards? I have tried asking multiple women that are a part of the 4B movement on TikTok, Facebook, and Reddit to figure out why, but nobody seems to want to answer that question. Part of me feels there's another agenda, but it's up for speculation. Either way, it seems like both good and bad men are starting to feel discriminated against. In a 2020 survey by the research organization PRRI, 50% of men agreed with this statement. These days, society seems to punish men just for acting like men. Surveys consistently show that young men are far less likely than women to say any particular issue is personally important to them. As you can see from this chart, young women are more concerned about 11 out of 15 different issues, including drug addiction, crime, climate change, and gun violence. There was not a single issue that young men cared about significantly more than young women. While women have become more liberal as an answer to their problems, men are finding support in a community on the right. Men are starting to find their tribe with Kevin Samuels, Andrew Tate, Trump, and podcast guys who validate their feelings, help them redefine conservative values as a masculine ideology, and encourage young men to aim their frustration towards liberals and feminists. Most young men probably don't care about making America great again, but a lot of men feel the need to have a secure space for themselves in a culture that ignores the challenges young men face. So, where do we go from here? Men and women are obviously speaking different languages, and neither side is being heard. Women might feel that men have not done a good job of protecting women physically, emotionally, and financially throughout history, and men might feel as if their ability to be in their masculine energy is being taken away. The world has never been so divided between men and women, and a third of America says that they feel lonelier than ever before. As someone who watches a lot of these gender war debates online and listens to people's opinions, stories, and experiences, I honestly think it comes down to a lot of people needing therapy. There is a lot of hurt, betrayal, resentment, abuse, childhood trauma, religious trauma, insecurities, abandonment, frustration on both sides that are causing people to act out the way they do. So what is the solution? For the gentlemen watching, let's get comfortable allowing your daughters, sisters, and wives to be able to express their experiences in an oppressed society without you getting angry and defensive. And the ladies here, let's get comfortable allowing our sons, brothers, and husbands to be able to express their pain of being men in today's society so that way anger isn't their go-to option to release. And do not minimize either side's experiences. In gender role talk, religion, LGBTQ, feminine and masculine energy talk aside, start learning how to love people the way they want to be loved. Sometimes it takes a simple, I might not understand what you went through. I might not agree with everything you say, but I can't imagine how challenging this must be for you, and I'm sorry you have had to go through this, in order to make a person feel seen and heard. That is how you build trust. This is how you show compassion. And the more time goes on, I am seeing more and more people not exercising compassion, respect, and empathy for others. It's time we restore full humanity. If men and women cannot come to an agreement on their social and political differences and decide on what it takes to maintain a healthy society, we are never going to see change, and we will both suffer the consequences together. And based on Business Insider interviews, there appears to be a growing eagerness among both young men and women to blame their problems on each other. A society cannot last like this. And I fear that if we cannot come to an agreement, we might just see the decline of the Western civilization.